Everybody's phones out back. All right, I would like to get back to the main screen here. Call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting at 10 a.m. on October 13th, 2021. Is there anybody got a late item? Hearing none, so approval of the agenda, recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for October 13th, 2021 be approved as circulated. Yay, first and second, all in favor, yes, go ahead. Adoption of the minutes. Approval of the minutes, recommendation at the meeting in the minutes for the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on September 22nd, 2021 be adopted. Any conversation?
No.
Oh, hearing none, okay. All in favor? Yes, good, thanks. Planning and Development Services update, current applications. Is this Scott?
Yeah, the list of current applications, maybe a minute or two. Just got a new one last week on Hillier Road, so for the mobile home park there. But yeah, the rest of them, I think the committee's well aware of them, and any questions I can answer those.
Which one did you say was the new one?
21-316 DVP 1705 Hillier Road. So I think so we got it last week. So I think on the screen is the most up to date.
Okay, so it's not here.
Yeah.
It's right on the bottom.
What is 00 Old Town Road?
So that's a subdivision, and it's kind of 00 is the address. So we'll probably look at readdressing that property once it's subdivided, and maybe some of the adjacent properties, but it's kind of the last property right before you get to the larger Old Town Bay property. On your way out.
So, okay, so where the gate is, where it used to be Federated Co-op, 00 is on this side of the gate. So are the numbers on the other side negative numbers, or what are they?
Oh, I'll leave that to Sarah to answer the addressing question.
Road is split into Old Town West and East at the moment. So the Old Town development restarts at like 101
Okay.
once you cross that boundary. So
Oh,
yeah, we need to relook at the numbering.
go ahead, Brian. You can't hear?
Sorry about that.
So she was saying that Old Town Road, where the co-op used to be, on the other side of it is going to be negative numbers. No, it's going to be in east and west. So now we might be looking at renumbering. I don't know how that's going to fly, because there's a lot of addresses there already.
Yeah, we're looking at an approach to increase our digits and try to keep most of them so that, say, your last 2 or 3 digits are still the same, but we'll add like a 1 0 kind of thing in front to try to limit the chaos. It's a couple ideas that I floated with Scott that we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments? Go ahead, Gord.
Yeah, just through the chair, Scott, 00 Old Town Road. Is that, did you say that's a subdivision, like vacation homes, like a few homes or just one?
So I think it's a 3-lot subdivision right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are they all linear from the street back to the water?
They don't go to the water. It's on the hillside.
Oh, it's the upside. Okay.
So we're still working out what the final subdivision can look like.
Okay. All right. Nothing else on that? Oh, man. Now I lost that thing. Jesus, I hate this thing. How about I do that? Make this, I want to make it bigger.
Oh,
get rid of that side. I don't need it. Okay, thank you. All right, so current applications for A, yes, we have none. Or that's what we just went through,
That's what we just did.
yes. 5, new business, 5A. Thank you. A development permit 21-11-DP 30 Main Street, which is the old Mount Park Sport Building. And I'm glad to see Councillor McCabe in the galley here because I have a couple of questions. Hopefully get him to answer. This is how it used to be with MOTI. So who wants to lead this discussion?
Sarah's gonna do that.
Okay,
Okay, so there is a recommendation here. The applicants are hoping to take this to the next council meeting, not the one today. So there's a recommendation on here. Next slide. So I think you're all familiar with the location. We've got the ortho photo here showing the roundabout and all those details. Next slide. So this was our previous plan. This is the landscape plan, just for context. And I just want to point out a few features here for you. So I think you're all familiar with the existing access. While the TV turns off, it comes in here, right? There was a previous idea to have the pedestrian access, one of them here, kind of into this area around where this is harder. So where people would go into this drive-through here and pedestrian access there. And these are not actually here anymore, they're moved over, just so that you know. Next slide. So this is the updated site plan since the traffic engineer has reviewed the site and all the, done all the traffic studies on the roundabout and Main Street. So access is still here, but they've now got a hard in and out lane. This is concrete. So you can only go in this way and come around the building. And if you want to come out, you have to come out here. So they set this up so there's adequate space for queuing to go out. And they've also moved the pedestrian access and added sidewalks internally. So crossings, sidewalk all the way around the building, crossings here and here at the drive-through and this exit lane, as well as a sidewalk along the school property. So that's the updated plan recommended by the engineer. I don't know if any of you have you've read the memo and the traffic report. So basically the roundabout has adequate service. There aren't any issues in terms of delays there. There aren't any issues in terms of vehicles coming off the roundabout and going in. No significant delays. It's traffic exiting the site. So that's why they've set this up this way, so that there's room for queuing, so that they can wait until they are able to exit. So, and they'd be able to go either way. The engineer didn't see it, that it would be necessary to block this and force people to go out of Paradise. So that's the updated plan. Jeremy just got back to me, he's reviewed that and he's happy with the updates. He doesn't have any concerns in terms of pedestrian and the analysis on the roundabout in Main Street.
all right, I'll start with a couple of comments. So first off, you hire an engineer, they work for the company, and they spent 3 hours there on September the 16th at 7 to 10 in the morning. And they spent 3 hours between 3 and 6 on the same day, September the 16th. So you know what, this thing is not worth the paper it's written on, in my opinion, because they should have done this the August long weekend to get a true representation of what was going on. Their highway traffic study is dated 2007. That's why I'm glad Malcolm's here. The numbers in 2007, I think we had a meeting with MOTI. They were saying on the Trans-Canada, 2007, they're saying 10,000 vehicles. And in the meeting that we had with MOTI here just recently, didn't they not say that the highway traffic was like 20,000 vehicles a day going through?
Yeah, excuse me, yeah, Chair. I can't remember the amount they said, but they said that, yes, 2007 is old, but they monitor the highway annually, and then they had more current traffic data for 97 and for Trans-Canada Highway. So this report would still have to get referred to MOTI, and MOTI might ask the same question you're asking. How current is the data they're using?
Right.
It looks like they've gone to great extents to get the traffic as far away from the traffic circle as possible on the western, southwestern corner of the property. So I don't think MOTI is going to question the traffic movement. I just read the summary report. They said that there'll be a queue of about 4 cars deep coming off the property onto Main Street, just east of the traffic circle, west of the traffic circle. So traffic might queue up on the property, but it won't impact the traffic circle. So it would become the developer's problem, not the city's problem or the highway's problem. If there was more higher data, more traffic data than they use. But I think as part of the referral system, this report will go to MOTI, and MOTI will analyze it. They'll probably ask the same question you did about how current is their data.
Okay. So do you want to bring this to not this council meeting, but the next council meeting? I strongly suggest we wait till MOTI responds to it.
MOTI will not respond. It's already been referred to them long ago and they won't review it. It doesn't meet any of their criteria for a review.
Does not meet any of their criteria for review.
You're not a I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Malcolm. That's why
You're not a referral agent on this.
Sweet Pal here. Sorry if I'm able to make a comment. The engineers who did the traffic impact study did reach MOTI, and their comment was they have nothing to refer back to this property as of it meets their requirements. And they did buy a parcel, piece of a property from 530 Main Street to add an exit lane, which was recently done in this year. So the engineers who were doing the impact study did contact MOTI, and their response was, these are the numbers. This is the last study done for Sicamous, and they have no concerns.
So I mean,
let's go ahead.
it wouldn't be an issue for the district of Sicamous or the district transportation, but it would be an issue for the developer to traffic to get off their lot. It wouldn't impact Main Street or the roundabout. I don't see it being becoming a district Sicamous issue. It could for the developer. The queues might be longer than the traffic engineers suggested of 4 cars deep in the queue during peak. But again, impact the function of Main Street.
Anybody else?
Well, for cars turning on to Main Street, if they're allowed to turn left coming out, that does impact the, sure, the queue doesn't impact the district of Sicamous, but when cars are pulling out there, it's gonna, you know, there's gonna be an effect. So, and the other thing, you know, there's the 2007 data. If the data is not current, then how can it be used in their study? don't quite understand that. Maybe somebody can explain that. And, you know, that little access to get out there, it just seems like, you know, it just seems like it should be a larger access there, like width-wise, but you know, I'm not a professional in this field, but that's just that I had.
Gordon, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, and you know, I can tend to agree with Brian. It's like, I mean, I know when we developed that property and we built that, renovated the building, we met with Highways on site. And they were adamant that we weren't allowed to use any of their property outside the property line, which has now become a road. And, but the thing that really concerns me about the whole thing is most of our service stations in town all have 2 exits or 2 entrances, either or. This is a very large piece of property that has huge potential to develop. And there's only a 14-foot exit for the entire 10 bay or whatever bay, how many bays the gas bar is. And then we have 2 drive-throughs, and then we have a proposed development for a hotel. And it seems like a lot of traffic. And I mean, I don't know how else we can do it. I just thought the impact study of the traffic, I thought it would be up to date. I mean, if they can't find a more recent one than 2007, you think they would do a new updated, because that's a big difference between 10,000 and 20,000 vehicles. So I don't know, that's my opinion.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing me, through the chair. Outside of traffic impacts, the volume of traffic, one thing I in my personal opinion, I noticed that turning radiuses coming off of Main Street. Typically, Ministry of Transportation likes to see what they call a WB20. So that's a pretty wide radius of a turn for a commercial transport to either turn in or turn out. So if they're coming out of their property with this existing configuration, it doesn't show any turning radius prior to leaving the property. So all the turning has to occur on Main Street. So I can see semis that are like, this is phase 1. Phase 2 is potentially a hotel at the corner there and stuff too, right? So semis even coming in, supplying the fast food stores or whatever, restaurants. There's no turning radius allowed for there, either going in or coming out. And typically, I always like to see a WB20 for transports to swing and go in and come out. So that could impact us because commercial vehicles coming out of there, semis, transports, will probably swing into the oncoming lane as they're leaving the property.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm not a traffic engineer, but I've seen that before.
Go ahead, Sarah.
So we have discussed this at length with the traffic engineer and Mark, who's the engineer that's designed the site. And Mark is online right now. He can speak to that if you would like.
Yeah, can you reference the WB20?
So I understand your concerns of a vehicle coming in. And we looked at bringing actually a WB28, which is it's a double trailer gas fuel one that comes in, and we brought it around the traffic circle coming down Main Street. And right now that access that is shown there, like the whole width of it's around 56 feet. We don't need the whole width of it, but we need a good portion. And the area that is shown, the 16-foot wide hatched, is going to be a roll-up curb, so that at nighttime when they bring in the fuel delivery trucks, he can roll over the center median area too in order to make his swing around the building. And I can provide Sarah some lines. And basically, I think it was on the last set of drawings that I'd sent her. We did show the WB28, which is way bigger than the WB20. to allow the fuel delivery and any semi that might have to come in. We also looked at just the way we're showing, proposing it right now, to bring in a standard pickup truck with a 28-foot long trailer behind. And it makes the access there the way it's shown right now to flow behind the building and around. I understand that, you know, we're showing a 14-foot drive lane coming out, and some people might think that that's narrow and it's not enough, but typical drive-throughs are around from 12 to 14 feet wide. We're just trying to make sure that all the traffic leaving the site all comes together, one behind the other, rather than trying to stack up beside each other and getting a lot of confusion right at the end. So that's where the traffic engineer had asked us to, if we could make it more of an exit lane rather than being wide open, for more of a free flow. And that's where you'd end up having more problems with, you got a 56-foot wide exit and people would just stack beside each other. So this way I think it'll be a lot safer. And in answering, since the traffic engineer couldn't make the meeting right now, he's on another one, and I've read his report. I do understand we were accessing information of a traffic impact assessment that was taken back in 2007. But there has been none done since then for numbers, and I do understand the numbers are higher. For them, I know you made a comment that they should do a study on an August long weekend. Well, that would put the owner in a position of having to wait an entire year, depending on when a development went in, to get a proper, you know, full-blown traffic impact assessment. And how many owners do you know would buy a piece of property and wait an entire year before they can develop on it with millions of dollars already invested into it? So the location of this access is an existing access for both pieces of property. It is probably the only location that you could get accesses into the site. We do understand it is limited. There's no way you're going to get an access going out onto either of the two highways, whether it even be just a right in or right out. So this is the spot for it, and it's the furthest one back from the traffic circle. The whole lots are zoned for commercial businesses to be in here. And it should be, whether it's one that demands a little bit more higher traffic count of vehicles coming, or one that's maybe gets 4 vehicles a day. So it's zoned for it. It's everything. We're not asking for any new zoning or anything. I can't see how it can't go forward on an application like this. So you're really tying the owner's hands after he bought the property, saying that you can't have this type of business. So you're restricting him to what type of business he can really have here.
So Mark, I'm pretty sure that there was an elaborate traffic study done before the traffic circle went in, which is only 6 years ago. And Councillor McKay suggested that MOTI does do a traffic study or a basic upgrade to the one they have annually. So at a meeting they had here, they expressed, when they were talking about the Broome Bridge, that the Trans-Canada Highway has 20,000 vehicles a day. That's its current usage. And with this report, all your numbers for traffic in and out off of that property are based off of 2007, which is 10,000 vehicles a day. So all your numbers in your report need to double of how many people might possibly go in there if you're using those percentages. That's all we're saying is that, you know, you're using outdated information. One of the things the District of Sicamous has not done is we have not done our own traffic assessment within the community, which is something we need to do. And so as the Planning and Development Committee, the idea is to make sure that the usage is allowed, which it is, and that the traffic doesn't end up that intersection before that roundabout went in there, the cars were lined up back to City Hall to get across it in the summertime for the last 20 years. So we know there's a lot more traffic than your September 16th study. So I'm not suggesting that you go back to the August long weekend. We're suggesting that you might want to update your numbers from the 4 or 5 cars you have a day going through there, because the August long weekend, you can't get onto the highway coming from across the tracks where the new bridge is being built. I live on the Trans-Canada Highway. I can't get out of my driveway for 2 months of the year. There's a lot of traffic. And this study hasn't included any of those statistics. So that's all we're saying is how accurate is the information. You know, I know from environmental studies, if your environmental study is 2 or 3 years old, it doesn't get accepted by anybody. So that's all we're asking. And we also suggested at the last meeting, planning and development meeting, that it was right in and right out. That was the discussion. Now you've got 4 ways: left in, left out, left, right in, right out.
Decisions on.
And they seem to think that there will be no effect to Main Street. We really want people to get into town, not to be bottlenecked there and then just go, well, we're going to drive by. And in the summertime, there's a lot more traffic than September 16th. Like the traffic dropped right off after the September long weekend. So I've lived here for 20 years. I know how busy the road gets.
Okay, I do understand that. And there is one section of the report, I think at this first study, it might have been the 10,000 vehicles they used, but then I think it was around the next 2 pages after 11, 12, somewhere in there, they did double and say, you know, projecting for the future, what if it is double the amount, and they've used double 100% capacity on it. So I don't know if that's part of, you know, a bit of a help, but not sure what we can ask when the traffic impact was asked to be done. We were into almost September then anyway, so they can't go back and find your busiest time of the year. So they got to go out when they're hired to go out.
Any other comments? Sarah, go ahead.
It's unfortunate the traffic engineer wasn't able to make it. What I understand from talking to the engineer and reading the study is that best practice for your best quality data is you do not do the count during your busiest time. You do it in your slower time. And then they have best practices, industry standards for projecting what your peak is. So as far as the Trans-Canada data goes, its only use within the traffic study like this is in terms of just making sure that that intersection has enough capacity and that there aren't downstream bottlenecks. So this site is studied based on the uses on the site and how much traffic those generate. And so that's based on an observation like across North America. Again, it's a standard manual that traffic engineers use based on use. So if you look through the study, it'll show you like, this is how much traffic a KFC is expected to generate. This is how much traffic, right? Gas station. And so what they did is they doubled it to simulate and over simulate what our summer long weekend looks like. They weren't able to do the count this year because of the fire. It messed up our traffic.
That's good.
Just going back to what Mark was saying, it's on page 13, section 3.3.2, where they do that, the doubling of the numbers to calculate for some of the traffic.
Well, but when your current report that you're using is only half of what the numbers are, doubling it just gets you to what you are today. So maybe you want to double it again and come back. That's all I'm saying is
Yeah.
if you're using numbers that are outdated, we would not accept a 3-year-old environmental assessment report. The province does not accept it, but we're going to accept a 13, 14-year-old traffic report to base our information on. Go ahead.
Sorry, I jump in. Like, environmental report is not dated. Environmental drilling was done on site this year. So please check the reports that have been submitted rather than making such comments, gentlemen.
Through the chair. So I was just going to comment on the traffic assessment. So where it's important is having current data for Main Street and the roundabout, because we were concerned about the roundabout, but mostly for Main Street. So that we do have current data for. I wish the traffic engineer was here, but to explain this better than I can. But we do have current data for Main Street and the roundabout and traffic exiting off there. Now, if we didn't have current data for Main Street, yeah, we should be asking for current data. I'm not sure how important it is that the Trans-Canada does, because it's based on those specific uses and the amount of traffic those uses attract in a location like that. I'm not sure that it matters how much traffic's coming down the Trans-Canada.
So can somebody point out to me where so that on page 12, the current traffic westbound on Main Street is estimated to be 118 vehicles in the morning, 170 vehicles per hour in the evening.
Do you have?
Where did that information come from?
I can't say where the information came from.
Page is that, Steffi? Steffi has it. It's 12, page 12.
Page 12.
Yeah, it's page 12. It's.
That's what I just said, page 12, it
After-
states that. So where did they get that information?
They took those counts from our camera on the traffic circle.
Okay, so there is an accurate representation.
Yeah.
Okay. So are those numbers reflected in this here? I guess so, the 122 roundabout, 56 east, left, right, north and south. So I guess if we're going to go along with this, we wanted to write in, write out only. I would suggest that somewhere we put it in the permit that if it's deemed that that's a problem, turning left off that property, that they would be responsible to put a divider in there in the future.
So additional offsite works.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brian.
So it's, this is, been going for a while here, and it seems like, it seems to me that the, when purchasing the property, the access seems like a red flag, and I just think, we just kind of came up and we're everybody on our committee and is going, it seems obvious to us and I just wonder why it wasn't obvious to the staff when this all came in that, this sort of thing right on Main Street hadn't like that didn't just jump out and no one else knows about it. It's just the staff just talking to the owner. And I just when this is up and running and everything, and if this all gets plugged up and there's a major thing, then they're going to come back and say, well, yeah, I went to the planning committee and they didn't seem to have a problem with it. And then everybody in town is going, how did that get passed? So I know that I really feel for the owner of this property to go through all this. They've put a lot of time into it, but you see it from our side. When it's all said and done, if people are standing around going, how did this happen? How did this get passed? They're gonna look back and I just wanted to say that so that it's on record. That's if you can see my point, then fine, you know.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the planning and development committee was where people should come before they actually start doing commitments. All right. And I'm not sure when this started. I know how long the planning and development committee's been working for. So it came to us when the decisions had basically been made. So, but you're going to have to add that divider in there for future reference, just because it's currently an allowed use, but in our new zoning bylaws, it won't be. So we can't deny it. That's point number 2. But because it's an allowed use, we're not going to end up at 5 years down the road having a problem on Main Street because we allowed it. So we can't stop it. That's not within our right to do. Our zoning bylaws are outdated. There's 4 or 5 projects that have got by because of outdated zoning bylaws. That's why we're redoing them. And so this is a current use. So, but I'm pretty adamant about insisting that if there is an issue at that point, they'll have to be responsible to put a divider in there so that you cannot come out of there across. Right in, right out only.
I did have a comment, but Gord also had a comment.
Go ahead, Gord.
Oh, no, through the chair. I mean, this is a tough decision. I mean, I agree. And we love to see development in the community but you just don't want to make a mistake at the entrance of your town and all it takes is one truck trying to turn in to the right and he can't turn in because he can't make the corner and he backs up the traffic circle and it's just, I mean, it is just it's so important. And just to have all that traffic go in one way and only come out a 14-foot wide exit that has potential for another hotel. Also, it's just so tight and, but I don't know what the option is. I really don't.
Go ahead, Sarah. And I got one more comment that just came from.
Sure. I just wanted to remind the committee that this is the 3rd time that this proposal has come to the committee. And it did come before the sale was completed. And at that time, the committee had a lot of support for it and didn't have any negative comments. Right off the bat, when their real estate agent contacted myself, that was the first thing that was discussed with them was access. And they need to talk to MOTI and MOTI is redoing the Trans-Canada. And like, you really need to get on this. So they were still comfortable with moving forward with the sale based on even with that. So my only other comment would be, I mean, this property is going to have this issue no matter what kind of development you put on it. It's pretty sizable. So there's a lot of room for a significant amount of development. And it is designated in our town center. So, I mean, you start thinking about, well, what other uses could be on there? Right. So short of somebody buying it specifically and developing it for something else, I mean, it's got a lot of potential for a lot of traffic regardless.
Yeah. So I just, is that Mark fellow still on the line?
I'm still on the line here. Yes, I'm just looking. I see Sean Benbow come on. I think, is that our traffic engineer, Sweet Pal?
That is correct.
So Sean, do you have any comments you'd like to address the committee here with? Because they do have a lot of concerns about the numbers used and everything.
Well, we're past the numbers. I have a very specific question.
Okay.
Mark, you commented that, you know, the B train's going to come there at night and that hatched area is a rolled curb similar to what we have in our roundabout for trucks to go through, that's pretty standard.
Okay.
But what happens when the guy with, you know, a full-size pickup and a 45-foot fifth wheel shows up and tries to turn in there and there's a lineup of vehicles coming out on the other side? Was there any calculation by the traffic study guy for that? Or let's say, because the Shell the other day, I seen a 48-foot bus stop there to fill up. And I'm assuming the canopy on that's going to be high enough for a bus to get into. So can it make it in there? A B train's got a tighter radius than a 48-foot bus. So I just wonder if any of those because once that guy tries to get in there, if he can't get in there and you got 4 cars stacked and he's got to wait for those 4 cars, what happens to the backup behind it? Like, that's just a comment. Like, is that hatched area wide enough for that 48-foot bus to get in?
I haven't run a bus on it yet, but if required, we could make sure that the hatched area, plus we could look at the inside turning radius where I'm pointing where it says one-way inbound, that we could widen out the inside so that he can circle around. Because once he starts to come in, there's lots of room to come in straight. So I can run a bus through. I can run a pickup truck with not many people have a 48-foot trailer behind them, but I think it's more common that's probably around a 32 to 34. And I can run both of them to make sure that they can make it in without backing anything up, and it's free flow coming in. Where we revised maybe the access width of what we're coming in to make sure that everything coming in, there's no backup at all.
Yeah, it'd just be good to see you figure out, because, you know, that's what's going to happen. And then that's where the backup starts. And then my concern is the people that want to get into town can't get into town. And right now they've got every reason to just drive by town. So we want to make it that they can actually get into town, not have to miss because there's traffic backed up there. So, and I have a truck and a 5th-wheel trailer, and my overall length when I get onto the ferry is 62 feet. Just if you're going to do the little, figure out how to get it in there.
Okay.
So, and it's like, basically, if you can get those in there and it's not going to be backed up, like they're not going to be parked on the street waiting for traffic on the other side, the 4 cars stacked coming out, they can get in there, then fine. Or make it that they can get in there without sitting on the street.
I'm 100% positive we can make the access work for that.
Particular exercise, I just see the importance of
Go ahead, Gord.
The chair, yeah, Mark, can you just kind of give us a update on what's going in there? Like, we know it's a 10-bay gas bar, and that's going to be your first phase. For food and alcohol and things like that, I understand there may be a liquor store. Can you tell us what's going in there?
Yeah, be a liquor store.
So in the building itself, there's going to be a KFC partner. There's going to be a Burger King food, and there's going to be seating in 2 different sections in there. There'll be a convenience store that, you know, sells the pop and the chips and stuff. And one of the areas he had noted in the report was liquor store, but it's actually liquor sales for seating in there, that they're able to serve liquor. So it's part of the seating area in there. So those are the 3 main things in the building: is convenience store and 2 fast food partners on that, plus the canopy for the gas sales.
So it's,
Thank you.
it's a licensed, so that area of seating would be licensed for alcohol consumption, is what you're saying?
Yeah, there's one area that we're looking to get a license on, and the other seating area will be more for the other people who don't want to be sitting in the licensed area. So
Okay.
So Mark, you're confident in the KFC and the Burger King? Is that what he said? Burger King?
yeah, there's KFC and Burger King.
And there's already an agreement in place for those 2?
Yeah, the owner is a partner with it. He's a franchisee of both of them.
The only reason I ask is because where the 7-Eleven was supposed to have a Starbucks and a drive-through, but
I can answer that. Yes, I'm confident. I have a letter of intent, approval letter for the site from KFC and Burger King.
okay, good. Gord, go ahead.
Yeah, just one thing on the liquor. The liquor, I'm not sure what BC liquor code is, or if you have to be, I can't remember if it's a kilometer or whatever within the next, is that just for sales or is that for consumption?
Consumption on site. So it would be a licensed area for consumption on site with food. So it's not liquor store. So we're not looking for liquor sales to take home or a kind of a liquor store. It's consumption on site with food. Would be like any other restaurant you sit in. If you want to sit in the licensed area and you want to have a beer, you can have a beer in that area. But in other areas, you cannot have a beer, which would be a typical QSR, quick service restaurant.
All right, so, oh, man, I hate this thing. Wow.
Shit. Got another goddamn meeting at o'clock.
Um,
An airport meeting. 10 more minutes.
So my closing comments on this would be with the brands approved, like KFC, Burger King, a lot of jobs are going to come in. Those operations would be like having at least 50 plus 60 odd jobs. It would be good for the economy. We have done this. And again, learnings from Marriott. We opened in Marriott. Same thing. It was at Danny's, Burger King, a gas station, and a truck stop. And that's what we expertise in. We didn't put a truck stop, especially looking at how the circle is moving. Otherwise, that is what we love to do. And looking at a school next door, if initial plans, which some of you guys would have seen, there was a truck stop design with the retail. So we took a step back and we said, no, we respect the community. There is a school next door. A lot of kids go. I do have 2 kids myself. So we removed the truck part. My sincere comment to the committee and people would be, if there is so much concern of a bus coming on Main Street or a big wheel coming on Main Street, there should be restriction put on. I've seen City of Merritt do it, that on Main Street, there should be no turning for a certain length of a vehicle. And I've seen in a lot of other cities, I've developed a site in Chetwynd, 100 Mile House, like a lot of smaller communities. And we love to work with, so I would have preferred not to have the median, things flow easy. But again, those comments came back. We went to the drawing board, we worked so that we can bring a resolution. So if all the vehicles are going in right in, we can actually do with the amount of parking, and the site is big, it's around 2+ acres. So we can easily stack 50 vehicles in the site if we want with this type of traffic movement. There is that keeps going in, and there is at least 60 stalls of parking plus stacking in drive-throughs. So those concerns that have been raised today, we sincerely appreciate that, and we are not here looking for a shortcut. The environmental report is not 3 years old. It was done this year. Actually, a proper stage 2 study was done this year, and we are only using that analysis. We are not using any old analysis. So if we, by God's grace, I use that word, and I strongly believe if we are looking to do in development, I think it is going to bring a lot of long-term business opportunities for the town as well. When such brands which are going to be there, which are not going to leave halfway through, they're going to be there, part of community, create jobs, and bring more opportunities to overall. And then we are competing the town with other towns, that you have those facilities and can attract more tourists to the town. So thank you everyone for listening and taking time and giving very sincere feedbacks. Appreciate it.
So just to comment on restricting vehicles on Main Street. Unfortunately, the district of Sicamous that's our entrance. Paradise, Capel, Gill is going to get restricted by MOTI. So our entrance into this community is Main Street. So Main Street needs to flow. And through Main Street, if you were here in the summertime, you would see there's a brand new truck with a $200,000 boat behind it, which is on a trailer that's 34 feet long. And so restricting vehicle movement down to no trucks and no trailers is not going to be something that ever happens, because our boat launch is at Finlayson Street, and that's where they're going to. So they have to have access in the town. So if we did that, our waterfront wouldn't have anybody. So there'll most likely never be a restriction of. We did put a restriction in. We have a bylaw that says no trucks on Main Street over, I think, 11,000 kgs, which is the average truck empty. So because we had semis loaded with logs parking on Main Street because it was convenient for them. So we put a bylaw in so that was not allowed anymore. But for a truck and trailer to go through the community to get to the water, that has to be, we cannot do no truck trailer allowed on Main Street. So. Go ahead, Steph.
Has a comment.
Who?
Deb.
Deb, go ahead, Deb, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say on Jeff's previous comment about some kind of follow-up if things just aren't working. As a person that used to, like Jeff says, I wanted to blow my brains out at that intersection with the octopus, and suddenly they brought in this wonderful traffic circle which made everything flow so well. And so it just makes me very nervous when I think about everything getting blocked up there again, because as Jeff says, it's how you get in and out of the community. And if I don't know how these things work, but if there could be some certainty that if the configuration does not work or is blocking things up, that there is some follow-up required to address that in the future.
All right. Any other comments? Because I think we beat this up enough. There is a recommendation. Can you add the wording to the recommendation about the divider if required or off-site works to this recommendation? And as it's amended, then we'll vote on it.
Scott, I would just add to this, Scott is very particular about how these are worded, so I would just add on there, on the condition that future offsite works or future servicing agreement conditions may apply depending on traffic volume.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
That's all I'm asking for is,
okay,
it's on record then, because what happens is we're gonna vote on this, it doesn't get on record, and then in 5 years, when it becomes a problem, there's no recourse. So we have that example enough time. So let's, if the proponent has no issue with that, then we'll go along with it. Does the proponent have an issue with the offsite works if required, if the traffic becomes an issue?
Not at all. We want to work with the local community.
Okay. Go ahead, Brian.
I think that that what is going to happen is coming out of this development. And it's, you know, Sarah had a good point, you know, whatever goes in here is gonna have traffic, but you know, a gas station, you go there for 3 minutes and then you leave. And so there's a lot more volume and a lot more vehicles that's stated on the report. What's gonna happen in the summertime, because we all live here and we know what's gonna happen, is you're gonna pull out of there with your trailer or just driving your truck, and you're gonna have to turn right. And then you're gonna go down Main Street, and then you're gonna turn on Paradise, because it's gonna be too hard to turn left. And that is gonna happen. And then you're gonna go down Paradise, and then you're gonna try and turn left on Highway 97 to get back to the number 1, because you may be driving along the highway and you see the sign for the gas bar, and then you're gonna turn in, say if you're coming from the west, and you're gonna turn in there and you're gonna do your thing and you're gonna come out, and then you're gonna be forced to go that way, and then you're gonna try and turn left onto Highway 97. And that is a big deal. Try and turn left there in the summertime. Locals that live in this town avoid that, and we turn right, and then we go down and we turn and we to do a little route, because that highway is so busy. So they're gonna be back up there, and then they're gonna turn left there. So I just wanna say that, and that's all I'll say about it. That's what's gonna happen.
So I guess because we've all lived here for a long time, we understand what the problems are with the traffic. And I'm not slighting our staff, but our staff has not lived here that long. And so, but after decades of trying to get around our community in the summertime, because we go from this sleepy little 2,000, 2,500 population to 14 or 15,000. And this year was not, because of the fires, did not quite get there. But there are years that it does get there. The houseboat companies all were totally booked for the first time in 15 years. So there is a horrendous amount of traffic. A house sells in town in 2 weeks. So the people coming here are more so. And the people that live here have a right to be able to get around their community without having to do detours. So that's all we're talking about to the proponent and the traffic study people. You know, we welcome business but we have to be able to get through town, and we are hamstrung in this town with access. And we've been fighting for more access, but MOTI unfortunately won't give us any more access. In fact, they want to take some of it away. So that's going to make the problem worse in the future. So that's all we're alluding to is the traffic that the people that lived here for the last 20 years are very aware of what it is like in the summertime. And yes, Sarah, thank you for the comment that nobody does a traffic study in the summertime in the busy time. That's the time that's most important to this community, because that's the time that all these businesses are open and try to do business. They're mostly closed in the wintertime. So you have to consider that summertime traffic. I don't care what the traffic studies say. You don't ever use peak. You do use peak for some instances. We use peak for our water treatment plant, for our wastewater treatment plant. So could you read the resolution as it's amended, please?
The whole thing?
Well, just what you're adding, because the main part is there. You're just adding a line at the back, correct?
So on the condition that additional off-site works and servicing agreement may be required with future traffic growth.
Is the word traffic growth or traffic issues?
Scott, do you have better phrasing for traffic growth?
Say it again on condition that additional offsite works and
Servicing agreement may be required with future traffic growth. What's a better phrase than traffic growth? Increased traffic volume?
Maybe Mark or the traffic guy can come up with a better word than. I don't want you to step on your own toe here, but
I understand, but not sure what to say with different traffic impacts, but it's based on what impact then?
Increased traffic impacts? Do you like that?
how about traffic delays?
Congestion?
Congestion? Increased traffic congestion?
Delays.
impacts is probably the best word because it captures delays and congestion.
Traffic impacts. Okay.
So, having said that, the amended recommendation, the proponent is fine with that. So, that the committee recommend that the council approve the development permit number 211-211-211-DP for the property. I'm not going to read through it all because we've read through it once already. And the amendment, going to call all in favor. This heap,
I had my hand up, sorry, you just
Okay.
went fast enough.
oh, those opposed. She's split. I can ask why, Gord.
Yeah, that's what, normally we ask why. This is a tough decision for me. I'm pro-development, but I just can't see 7 businesses coming out of one entrance and going in one entrance, coming out of one exit and going in one entrance. It's just too many businesses for that size of driveway. That's the only reason. I just, there's some other reasons with liquor store or consumption of alcohol close to the school and stuff like that, but more so is just 7, it's 7 businesses, and I appreciate what the staff have done and the owner, but I just have a couple concerns about that.
Brian?
Pretty much the same thing. The only thing I would add is that this is the gateway to our community. And I feel like, I'm not the expert, so I'm not going to suggest anything that there's a better access of turning lane or anything like that, because I'm not the expert, but I think that it's that's the reasoning. The gateway to our community, I feel there's gonna be issues there. So that's why.
All right, so I guess that with a tie, what is it?
Council decision.
We're not going to carry a recommendation because it's a tie, but it's not actually our final decision. It will be a council's final decision. So, I mean, we were asked for a recommendation and it's a split vote. So we'll have to bring it to council and see what happens at council. So maybe in the meantime, you can figure out the 48-foot bus and
I
the
don't have this problem.
5th wheel trailer. Because that would be additional information that would maybe help. That said, if you have enough room on your property to stack up, 15 or 20 vehicles back there waiting to get out, I'm not seeing, but we all agree on one thing. They can't be sitting on the road to get in, because that would destroy the access to the community. And I see from what you have there, driving in should not be that big an issue. You have lots of room for that. So as long as they can all get in there, whatever vehicle decides to turn in there, because I don't know that you want to put up a sign restricting what vehicles come in, except for maybe semis. And the district should put up a sign at the entrance, basically stating that your axle weight over this is not allowed, so that loaded trucks, other than you're making a delivery. It's the only exception because that's what the bylaw states.
Apparently it's only in the spring, that limit.
No, we passed a bylaw that is year round, 12 months of the year. And it was because semis were parking in front of the school loaded with lumber. And
Pass it back.
Paradise Hotel, pardon me?
I'll pass it back to Jeremy.
I know there
He's
is,
saying that it's only in the spring, so.
no, it's, the spring is a weight restriction thing that had nothing to do with it. Because we actually did that in the fall. Because the logging trucks were parked on Main Street.
Yes, we did.
So you're restricted to 12,000 kilograms, I think it is. We had somebody tell us what the weight of an empty semi was as a rule, and that was allowed, but not a loaded semi. And the bylaw does state unless you're making a delivery, because the beer truck's got to get to Brothers and Moose's and the food truck. And
So it's not currently a weight limit, it's a truck type limit?
no, it's a weight limit except for delivery.
Bylaws we don't even know we have.
What are you smiling, Scott?
This is why I asked Jeremy, it's his bylaw.
I guess just enjoying the discussion.
Well, I said, we're here to, we are, as a committee, we want development. As a community, and this council wants development. We just don't want to have it that we give up access to the community because the highways, MOTI has taken away enough of that for us. We don't need to take it away ourselves. That's all. And we had this meeting the other day and discussed it and just went, that was our only biggest concern was the traffic. Will it be backed up and piled up there and cause an issue getting into town? That's our only concern. So, all right, so I said it's recorded, it's a 2-2. So now, how do I get back to the, oh, bingo, that's the, all right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Like I said, you will have to wait till the council meeting. Any other comments by the proponent or Mark?
Just curious, that's going to go to the next council meeting on the
27.
on the 27th then. Okay.
Yeah, just help us get an understanding of that in and out. That's what your issue is with the planning committee, so.
The last comment on alcohol consumption, it's a sit-in restaurant like a Boston Pizza or any restaurant. It is no alcohol sales next to the school. So in a licensed area, if someone is of age, then only they go. In a Boston Pizza, in the bar section or anywhere, you only are allowed an entry as per the BC laws if you show an ID. So that's why it's not alcohol sales. It's kind of a sit-in restaurant like you go to any sit-in restaurant. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's 5 after 11, 10 after 11. So brewery development, Travis Nichols. Go ahead, sorry, through the chair. Go.
Through the chair, Jeff, could we push that back to the bottom of the agenda? Travis has just a quick meeting he's going to go to, and he'll come in at the bottom,
Okay, so
wherever.
we'll move B to the end. What is our time to be finished here at? Do we have a time we have to be done by?
I think before 12.
12 o'clock or?
Yeah.
Okay, so he'll have to make an appearance here by 1:45 at the latest.
If it comes down to it, I can present without Travis. I kind of wanted him here as well. I'm Nelson, I'm his partner.
Hello,
So
sir.
he should be back within the hour. For sure.
Within the hour, but we're done at
Yeah.
12.
Hard
Within
day.
half an hour. So.
So that's, like she said, Sarah, this is the third time it's been brought to the same committee, and the first time when they did it internally, I wasn't on there. They all seem to, no objection, then the last time.
So what are we doing then? Are we doing the brewery or are we gonna wait?
Oh,
I'd ask we just wait till we get closer to the end, and if we start running out of time, I'll just do the presentation without Travis. It should be
All
quick,
right.
but I'd like him to be here if possible.
All right, thank you. So then next on the agenda is the prefabricated metal buildings in residential zones. So there's a great picture, but you should see it from the back from the neighbor's place. I have a picture from the other side. My biggest concern is how did this get by? Like we were complaining about it gonna be on Main Street at the brew pub. And this is in a residential zone. Who let this go by? Who actually said this was a good idea?
so it's a structure that meets the zoning bylaw. We don't regulate form and character in residential areas. It meets the height, it meets the size, meets the parcel coverage. You know, if they did a stick-built building and covered it in pink vinyl, we wouldn't have much opportunity to you know, steer them in any other direction. So I don't know how you'd address it. It is more of a commercial industrial type building. I assume it's some kind of cost savings on the construction of it, and the owner took advantage of that, but it's difficult to control in residential areas.
Okay, so the reason that I asked that this come here was to, let's figure this out for the new zoning bylaws that we have. That, don't we have form and character to build a house?
We do not have that power, only in multifamily and intensive residential. So potentially Parksville could be considered intensive residential. However, these are not. So we don't have any form and character powers. So we could have a restricted floor area on the first floor. We have to be careful because we are proposing to allow carriage houses.
So if a guy wants to build a carriage house, he could actually put that closet up.
I'm sorry.
If a person comes to council or to staff and says, I'm going to build a carriage house, but I'm going to use that to build it.
Right.
That's what they could do.
Yeah, Scott.
So it would have to meet BC building code. So if it met BC building code, I believe in the zoning bylaw, the carriage house has to be the same architectural style as the residence.
So why can we not have it that is what's part of, you're building a garage or a shop on your property, the shop you had to attach to your house. That's the way it used to be. So somebody puts a bigger shop than a house because that was allowed, and that's how they did it, by attaching it to the house, because they couldn't have a separate building that was as big as they wanted. But if they attached to the house, they could make it that size.
So the current height restriction in the residential areas is 10 meters. So none of those houses are 10 meters. Those are maybe around 8.
No, I'm not referring, I don't care how high it is.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, for this particular shop, there's no reason why it has to be attached, because it's under the height.
But you
6 meters for an accessory currently.
But you just said that if you were putting in a carriage house, it had to meet the form and character of the existing property.
And we're probably stretching things a little.
Yeah,
bit there.
I personally wouldn't have put that in there because I don't think we can put that in there. I don't know. Well, I guess we need.
Why can we not put that in? Go ahead, Brian.
I think that's a little tricky because I've seen this before, and a similar thing. So you've got houses that are built in 1970, 1980, and then people go to the town and say, so I have to make this secondary suite look just like this old house. And so it becomes you kind of go down a bit of a rabbit hole there. So I think that's a tricky one. For a newer subdivision, like in bigger cities, you have a lot more ability for architectural control, but in this town, that's very tricky. And it's like, to just because we have so many older homes. And then you've got to make it for everybody. So that would be just a little bit input from seeing it before.
So can you not do something forming character of the neighborhood? Like, did this permit get referred to the neighbors?
It wouldn't. So I mean, they're applying for a building permit. They don't require a development permit. And the key is we can't require a development permit for form and character in residential zones. It's the Local Government Act says where we can ask for development permits. It's environmental, it's safety, geotechnical, it's water course. For commercial, it's form and character, and for multifamily residential, it's form and character, but single family residential neighborhoods, we can't have a development permit for form and character. It's just not in our power.
So there's no way that the four neighbors, because all four neighbors are going, Jesus. Like they're pissed. The same as the trailer on steroids that was at 501 Elliott or wherever the heck it is down in the corner over there. Like, and the same as the little box on Shoe Swap. Like, if we don't have any control over what happens, I got one guy that wants something and I piss off 9. Go ahead, Sarah.
Through the chair. All we can regulate is the box. So we can't change the fact that it's steel, for example, but we can have a restriction that limits the floor area and the height. But there's a risk with that because in this town, people want to be able to store their boat or their RV in an enclosed building. So, and that was one of the things I understood was one of the asks of Mark Holland for the bylaw. And it currently, the things I thought would be in there are not in there. So in terms of an increased height to go up to say 7 meters or 7.5 meters to allow for that taller garage door, that's not in there. So like it's still a restricted height in residential zones. There isn't a restriction on floor area. I mean, we could look at doing that on the first floor, like, and write it carefully so that it doesn't interfere with carriage suites. But you run up against this other big need, which is for these larger toys and storing them. So I'm not really sure how to get around it because you can't regulate the materials that they use, right?
So we cannot say in a residential area, no metal Quonset style buildings. We cannot say that. That's against the province rules.
We can look into that with the metal Quonset.
Like you could build a metal building with metal siding on the side of it. He could have built something that had some color to it, like Warren Jensen did on Riverside. He built a building with that. I don't like the color, but that's the color he built it. But it wasn't that. It wasn't galvanized. I got one of those on my property.
So
Go ahead, Gordon.
you go first.
It's you, the chair. Does he have a footing or a foundation?
Or the cement slab.
He's poured a cement slab. So does he have a fraud? Does he go down 3 feet?
I don't know whether he put footings in it or not. I know the one that I put up, I had to put either foundation around it because I had to get a building permit for it. But I'm on a farm. So, but I chose to use, it could have been on 3 foot footings or it could have been, so I put it on the 5,000 pound lamb blocks. I put them around the 3 sides because I didn't want anything in front of it. I got no door on the front.
So
Go ahead.
and I'm not sure of this, but if the wording was agricultural style building, is that leaving it to Harry, like if you said, because that I would describe that as an agricultural building, a steel agricultural building. Like you say, if it was more residential looking,
Yeah.
but it was still steel, then, I think that's your problem, is that it looks like it should be on a farm.
Yeah.
And I think their neighbors are, they're probably pretty shocked when,
Oh, they're ballistic. I mean, I got a list of 2 of them at coffee every day.
in this town, I wouldn't be restricting size or height, because that was one of the things that, we had
Yeah.
clients that were, saying this town is this and that and everything, because they won't allow me to have this massive thing, because everybody's got toys. So I would be very careful about that. I think it should be, I wouldn't say bigger the better, but I wouldn't restrict that, but maybe it's like maybe the agricultural style building could be. Or is that wrong?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Through the chair. Yeah, so when I review building permits, and I currently don't often, but Scott's handling that. He's getting that process all sorted out. Like, that's definitely like a first question is, when you see something like that, you start asking about the use, like, what is your intent here? Like, your planner spidey senses start going off, like, what's the use? And I mean, if they're saying the use is, it's just to store their RV and their skidoos. I don't know if that's what you guys call them now, sleds. We can't really stop it. It's only if it's like, oh, well, I have a home-based business. I'm a logger and I need somewhere to maintain my logging truck. Well, then we may run into a zoning issue, but otherwise, like, there's not.
So my request to staff is because we're working on our zoning bylaws. They're not finalized yet, somehow or another, because most likely that was a future building. And if you go to Future Building's website, you will see that they build buildings that are metal buildings, but they look like the one that Warren's got. They build, but they're more money than that. That's the cheapest item on the menu. That's why I bought one, because it was like $12,000. And it's structurally engineered for the snow load here. Because you give them your address, they got the snow load, so the rest of it, so they actually calculate the snow load and everything. So it's an engineered building, all right? But they also make them that they're the walls with a gable roof, and I agree, and we're not talking about size or height. That's not it. It's that you need sunglasses when the sun shines in 4 people's backyards. That is.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I do know that when a building permit comes into Sicamous, somebody brings in a permit, they are told by the staff, have you talked to your neighbors or and they've sort of given them advice. And I'm not everybody's gonna take that advice, but I do know that about the staff, that's usually said, talk, like, not just a development permit, but a building permit, talk to you, because that I've heard that, lots, and I think that's always a good thing, and if they're told, okay, this looks like a big agricultural building, have you talked to your neighbors, and maybe they would like some input, right? But
Yeah, and that's fine, but it should be, I mean, it's not. I know 2 of them at coffee, like, I'm going like, who allowed this? That's all I'm getting. And did you find out? I said, yes, I asked, and yes, they have a permit. And I said, so it must be an allowed use. Unfortunately, if it's an allowed use, we can't say no. It's like everything, it's an allowed use. So, but staff, find a way that you can't build that in somebody's backyard.
Yeah.
I don't care how you do it. It doesn't matter, because if I lived in town, if I lived at my old address, 450 Cottonwood, and my neighbor put that up, I'd shoot somebody. Because that's just retarded. Like you go to the people that are on behind Three Boys property with the fence and the building there. That's been there for as long as those houses been there, longer. So that's a different issue. And that is zoned commercial, but this is residential. And you got to look at that. I have a picture of it from the guys, one of the guys back here. And I'm telling you, if I lived in that house, I'd be selling it. And he may very well sell them. Like, but he's not going to get anything because it's a horrible looking thing to look at back here. Somewhere we have to have some consideration for form and character. Farm building in the district of Sicamous is what we want. I know our zoning bylaw still says we can have chickens, pigs, and goats and horses. Properties across the street, it's still zoned that way. But usually not in your backyard. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda, if we're done kicking that one around, and it'd be nice if we could get something figured out before the zoning bylaws make the third or fourth reading. So the next one is, I asked about traffic study requirements, and after I asked about it, I guess we found out it's just the engineer comes in and says what it is. But, you know, the one thing that I talked to a couple different people that was mentioned was that, you know, when we're talking with MOTI and access into our community and the rest of it, we're basically at their, whatever they decide for us. Because the district of Sicamous has not got, as far as I know, a traffic assessment for our needs. So I would like to suggest that maybe we look into that. The district of Sicamous traffic assessment for our future needs. Because if we at least have a leg to stand on, maybe we won't keep losing access. And it's going to get worse when they 4-lane the rest of the Trans-Canada. Because, and I don't get it, because Golden has got pretty decent access. Salmon Arm's got like 4 or 5 traffic lights and 50 kilometers an hour, but like we don't even get that. So I think that's the only way that we're going to end up with the issue coming off Main Street, off the traffic circle. Like that would answer all our own internal questions. We had a traffic study needs. Go ahead, Scott.
And I think right now, if, you know, if someone's like this on 530 Main is a good example where Ministry of Transportation has said, hey, that's on Main Street, it's not on the highway. So we're not going to require any information. They'll do that just about on every development that I've seen. It's like, well, no access on the highway 97. But if, you know, if somebody wants access off Roma or off, you know, any of those other roads, they're like, it's up to the district to address their traffic issues on their road. So you can see, you know, example 530 Main, there's an issue in the future. Ministry of Transportation is going to be like mandate to the district of Sicamous, hey, you guys need to fix this issue. And that because it's on Main Street, right? So I think it's a good point that we should at least come up with some parameters when people make an application. Hey, you're not going to get access off Highway 97. You're going to have to prove that whatever offset works required are your responsibility, or you have to prove there are none, or if there are some, then their responsibility. But I think it's something we can do, and yeah, it's probably about time that it be done.
Well, with the buildings that the community is looking forward to doing, Habitat, Wellness Center, housing project for the seniors, we're going to attract more people to be living downtown, which was the goal, to get people downtown. Because if people live there, it's kind of easy to go for dinner and have a drink and walk home, as opposed to where I live, because that's quite a hike. So that was always the envision from the OCP. So I don't know what the costs are, or would be, and I have no idea what the parameters would be, but a traffic needs study, like, and we talked about becoming a resort community, so the speed limit was 30 kilometers an hour. We were talking about that so that we could maybe influence 97. You know, if you become a scenic, you know, kind of like Jasper, you know, so that the traffic slows right down. But highway 97 or highways, MOTI has always said, well, it's a numbered highway, so we're going to do whatever we want. Right? We have no jurisdiction, and they're proving that with their speed limits coming through town after the bridge is built. So they're not slowing it down, they're speeding it up. So if staff could look into that. And then the zoning bylaws, there was a couple things in the zoning bylaws we mentioned at the last meeting about changing the town center and the gateway, removing fuel. So we don't actually end up with another fuel station on Main Street. Its current zoning bylaws allow for that.
List, sorry, through the chair. I'm not sure if it's on this version of the list. It turns out me and Scott have two separate lists.
I have a pared down list that's very basic that you can't really identify who's making the comments. Sarah has a more comprehensive list with more details that, yeah.
And it's just who's making the comments. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, there's suggestions. I'm assuming we're still in the review for the zoning bylaws.
Yep.
So
we're still collecting referrals. We're still waiting on some referrals. And we're still collecting feedback from the public. And we're actually kind of this week, this week, we started getting kind of more in-depth comments back. And and I think we're still on track for a public hearing in November.
okay.
But and then Sarah's doing some editing type work as well. So it's coming together, but yeah, it takes time. Yeah, we're still waiting on Ministry of Transportation's response. So one of the attachments is a land use change table that Sarah prepared for Ministry of Transportation. They wanted to see every change in use. So Sarah went through it and had every change in use on a chart that we're going to send to Ministry of Transportation. So I attached that in this package as well. And then, yeah, I'm waiting on Ministry of Transportation. We just got the CSRD's response. And some other ones, most of the staff, so corporate services and finance and operations, kind of, we've received their feedback and kind of trying to figure out ways to make that stuff work. It says no response, but yeah, we're working with them, with Daryl and Jeremy and Kelly and Jennifer. So it's all coming together.
Okay, are there any comments on any of this from anybody? I know some people would like to comment on the CSRD's response. Or
Well, yeah, I'll just move on to the CSRD one. Is there any way we can create our own bylaw that doesn't allow bylaw 900 to enter our jurisdiction? Because, I mean, I don't know if they're trying to kill our community or what they're trying to do, but I don't think fairly highly of the CSRD's recommendation, whether it be, the marine zone or I don't think it's their place, and I think they should worry about the CSRD's jurisdiction and not worry about our jurisdiction. That's my comments.
And I can speak to that, like bylaw 900 does not apply in the district of Sicamous. I think their comment was, hey, why not have your marine zone reflect bylaw 900, which we prefer? Another one is they don't recognize semi-waterfront owners. So if there's a road or a trail or something, they don't like bylaw 900 doesn't recognize semi-waterfront holders. So our bylaw does recognize semi-waterfront landholders as with the same rights as non-waterfront. If they're only separated by highway, that's the difference. That's their recommendation. Ultimately, it'll be up to council to decide, but I'd say we'll probably leave it as it is with especially on the rail trail side where people can have the right to, or the zoning allows them to have a dock. You're still dealing with the upland owner, but
Correct.
No.
And we don't want to, I'd actually suggest that the Planning and Development Committee respond that we're not going to amend our current zoning bylaws because we are a waterfront community. I had this conversation the other day with, I'm not sure if everybody realizes, but Sicamous had 750 houseboats at one time and 13 or 14 houseboat companies. That's how we got the sign that says the houseboat capital of Canada. They manufactured, they moved out, they've sold. I think the current number is about 212 to 240 houseboats, but the 700 were houseboats that were not much bigger than my trailer. Now they're bigger than some people's houses. So, the number of people that they accommodate, I think, has relatively remained close to the same from what they were with 700 to what they are today with 250, because the 251 that, back in when my kids were small, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I rented one and it's not very big. And that's all it would accommodate is a family with a couple of kids and maybe a couple of friends. That's all you can get on them. But now you can get 20 or 30 people on a houseboat. So Sicamous has always been a waterfront community. The boat storage industry, the boat repair industry, the access to the water, we have 8 or 9 boat launches, is imperative to our community. If we restrict that in any way, shape, or form, I don't think what Sicamous is today, I think it would be a real hardship. If you took away the access to the water, if you took away the houseboat companies, if you took away the moorage, if you took away the storage, you're going to find that none of us really need to be here because there isn't going to be anything left. And I think we need to consider that moving forward. Like it is our community. Go ahead, Sarah.
I did actually talk to the respondent from the CSRD and his comment about that actually has more to do with not Coach Road. I mean, he was concerned about Coach Road and I am 100% sure there's no issue with Coach Road, right? They have the ability to have an agreement. They already have existing leases that perhaps he's renewing, they're fine. It was more lands like Gordon's having a look at it here. Lands that are separated by the highway, because MOTI has been very clear with me, like they will never give upland consent for people to get a lease so they can have a dock across the highway. So anybody that currently has a dock on the other side of the highway, it may be like non-conforming potentially, but they'll never get a lease to be able to actually legally have it there. So general permissions from the minister allows anybody who's waterfront to have a dock and a buoy. Anybody who's not waterfront, they're semi-waterfront, so they're separated by like a highway, for example, they're allowed to have a buoy, but not a dock, unless they go through the process to get a lease, a crown lease, right? But they can't get that without upland consent. And so what they were just talking about ones where it's the highway, MOTI, and they're like, why put that out there if MOTI is never going to give them permission? It just becomes an enforcement issue potentially that the province will ask us to enforce. Because I guess the province asked the CSRD to enforce at some point.
Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, no, just, the response that 800 or 850. 800 is waterways property, 800 2 Mile Road. They would like us to reconsider that. I mean, I have no reason why they would even,
It's currently waterfront. It's not subdivided off at this point.
yeah.
It's waterfront, so it's not an issue.
But if you take a look at the entire Shuswap, all the way down from White Lake, all that way, and you go all the way around Copper Island, you go, I mean, there's always a road in front of you. A lot of people don't own, very few people own up in between the road and the lake. And they basically want to take their docks away and just give them, I don't know what they want to give them. But if you look in Vancouver, you may want to walk out on a ramp and go to a restaurant. They're not the upland owner. You know, the restaurant's not the upland owner. Or there'll be a condo and it'll be like a 30-story condo and there'll be a marina out front. And the marina's not the upland owner. The condo people own right on the water.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to do it out there. And I'm not sure why we're not allowed to.
It's
do it.
because they're waterfront, right? The condo is waterfront, right? And
Yeah.
that marina is tied to the,
But a lot of times it's not.
right. And so there could be something historic. And Vancouver is a tough one to compare to because they operate under a charter. They don't operate under the municipal
At least,
act or the local government act.
No, it's the same as Kelowna. They basically have
at least,
water license, lease, whatever. So
Yeah.
like in Kelowna, you don't have to go through front counter. Kelowna, you go to Kelowna, like front counter is,
They own the lake kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
they do. And we talked about doing that here. But the problem is first off, you'd have to find somebody in staff that knew what Keith Weir knew and go through that whole application process and do all that. And so, you know, it was another position. And then what the return was on the applications and the rest of it, I did all the math on the number of slips and the revenue that the district could possibly get out of it. It would have been a subsidized position. So that was the reason. That was like 5 years ago I did that. I came up with all the numbers of what the costs were and it just was. Now, maybe with the Twin Acres expansion, and maybe if Waterways expands theirs, and maybe if these other couple of people go ahead with their marinas, there might be enough there to warrant something like that. But we have a bigger issue on the other side of the channel to deal with before that issue. So, but the district of Sicamous currently controls what happens within, and we used to allow, because when the CP was there, we allowed it. They had to go through front counter. Maybe front counter was a little loose with referral to CP and just let them kind of go. And that's not the case of the new order. So, but at some point, at some time in the future, you're gonna have to go around an electric boat.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's not today, tomorrow, or next week, but I know you go to Europe, you go to a lot of the places over there. They don't have a combustion engine pushing their boats around on the smaller lakes because they all got this pollution thing, so. All right, well, anything else? I guess we'll have to bring in our item number 5B, the brewery. If he's available, we got 15 minutes left.
Oh,
I
we can have the room until 1:30.
So 1:30.
Yeah, Jen confirmed it.
Oh, so is Travis there yet?
He'll probably drop back in as soon as he's available. I can probably get started and at least start the discussion and hopefully he can join in soon. He should be here basically any minute now. So,
But we can wait, I guess. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, maybe I'll just do a little bit of an introduction. And Nelson, do you have a slideshow to share?
not a whole lot. We kind of were just gonna talk through the plan. Like we weren't sure how formal or anything this first meeting was gonna be. We kind of just wanted to talk with you guys and at least get the ball rolling and kind of see what kind of questions you guys would have for us so we can start putting our answers together. I guess very simply, like me and Travis looked at starting a brewery. Originally, we were looking to kind of keep our costs low and lease land and kind of like do it in an already developed building. Eventually, we found that there wasn't a whole lot available in Sicamous, so it led us towards looking at for sale properties. And then we found that property that we're talking about, the one just before the 97 turnoff off of Highway 1, just west of kind of what is the restaurant called? I already forgot. Just west of Joe Smuck's, like just before you go across that Sicamous Sequoia Road on the bridge. And that kind of led us, like it was a great property for what we're thinking. So it kind of led us to looking into building the whole property for kind of our plans. And so we're kind of still early on in our due diligence phase, because we got to make sure everything's still feasible before we start throwing a whole bunch of money at it. But the whole plan is to build a brew pub, basically. Like, so we have a brewery, we brew our beer on the premises, and then we would sell in it kind of is going to be kind of a restaurant as well. So serve food as well, and it would be serving food and beer in the restaurants. And then ideally we'd like to sell off sales as well. Once that's set up, we'd probably also like to start selling to other potential, like whoever's interested, like Moose Mulligan's and Brothers Pub. If any of them were interested in selling, we'd try and sell to other local businesses as well. And that's kind of was the theory of it. Like I said, we're still quite early on in the planning. The sketch that you've got up on the screen, like we were, there's nothing professional been done. It's all been us doing our own little models just to kind of think about like what it would look like potentially. Like obviously it's not pretty. It's meant more to try and figure out like what a floor plan of a building would look like, what kind of parking space we would have, because that's going to limit our maximum capacity and stuff like that. So it's more just theory crafting. It's not meant to be like a proposal saying this is exactly what we want to build. It's more just thinking about what it would look like.
Well, it's a very interesting concept, and it'd be good to see that location. Just to comment personally, like MOTI has not come back with what their 4-lane plan is going to look like, and unfortunately, that corner right there, coming from the bridge, you'll see a lot of traffic there, but I have no idea how they plan on tying that intersection into 97 or to access to the community at all. And so the only thing that I possibly can see is that they're going to want the front of that along with the old Steve Hyams garage to get some sort of a lineup to coming across Main Street, because that is probably the second worst intersection in the district of Sicamous. And we have no idea, like we've asked time and time again for MOTI to give us some sort of a preliminary idea of what they plan on doing, because it's held up down where the Chevron is. They were going to do a lot of work there. They decided not to do the work because they don't know whether that intersection, that access in and out of the highway where the NW is going to remain or close. We don't know what's going to happen to the Mayor Road crossing, which is an angled crossing across the Trans-Canada Highway at a 45-degree, which is at the end of D. Dutchman. And it'd be good if we could push MOTI to get back to us. It was a request several times, and to this date, we still don't know what they're going to come back with. But a brew pub, I think, would be a great addition to the community. Unfortunately, it would be, if it was a brew pub with a restaurant and a rooftop view, it'd be nice to see it on Main Street.
Yeah, we were kind of, because we were looking at different options. The big thing is on Main Street, with the fact that the brew pub, like you need the square footage. So like, I think this building's modeled at about 6,000 square feet, like 60 by 100. So you need the square footage as well. So it's hard to just add a 6,000 square foot building to Main Street. And we did look at the positive of like the exposure from being on Highway 1, like you said, potentially 20,000 vehicles a day. That's a lot of exposure for a business like us if we built there. You get a lot of people seeing it as they drove by and might get us a lot of customers to stop. It does come at the sacrifice of any foot traffic, obviously, from downtown. But yeah, all our theory crafting right now has just been kind of as the property sits now. We haven't taken any thought into how it could change with the highway. So that's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to keep in mind and think about a lot for sure. We're not fixed on this exact location. This is just for what we were kind of planning and talking about. It seemed like ideal for right now. Like it kind of gives you all the exposure to Highway 1 and even the 97 traffic, depending on where they're coming from. And it also gives you not like a lake access, but it gives you a waterfront, a waterway to go look over. So like we kind of built the brewery, so all of our kitchen and stuff is in the front and the side, and the place where everybody's actually going to be sitting is going to be looking off on the back of the lake. So it kind of shelters everybody from the highway, and it would still be a very nice place, if you will. But yeah, we'd be very interested in seeing what the Highway 1 changes are going to be.
Scott?
Yeah, so I've let them know, about the floodplain requirements in the roof area setbacks. And then there'll be a need for a traffic impact analysis on this one as well. I've been dealing mainly with Travis and so, yeah, we haven't taken a really in-depth look at this yet. I thought bring it to this committee and get some feedback for them. The one thought I had was gas. Without gas, I'm wondering, is it necessary, to run the boilers or whatever for the brewery? Gas is, it is looking at providing it, on some kind of basis. Fortis is looking at, a pilot project or something for Sicamous, but right now there's no piped gas coming in. So I think the boilers would have to be, propane that you're trucking in or electric.
I can speak right to that right now. Up to right now, for our size, electric is feasible.
Okay.
If you start getting a lot larger production than what we're currently planning, then you start getting into where electric becomes quite expensive compared to a gas operation. But for the size we're at, we're kind of right on the median where it makes sense to still do electric before switching to gas. So just pure electric isn't out of the question. There would be some higher electricity requirements, but I don't think that should be an issue. It's like you'll probably need 3-phase power up to 240 or even 400 volt, but nothing I don't think that would be an issue, I assume.
Okay.
I'll just comment on it. If you go back to that orange or red colored building with the slope roof on that one side there, it looks like it's facing the exact same way as my solar panels, and I generate 21 megawatts of power a year off my solar panels, and your roof looks like it's pretty much lined up with that.
And I had thought about that as well. Everything we can do to, like, if we're going to be using lots of power, everything we could do to harness it as well. Like I said, this is just a very early visual draft, so it was just kind of the first thing I thought of as far as a roof line went. Because, like I said, we had the theory of the rooftop patio in the back, so we're kind of trying to shelter it from the road in all directions, so they're not hearing road traffic and semis and trucks ripping by and stuff. So it's a very early concept.
Yeah, and as Scott said, he said, I'm a little bit amiss in that comment, Scott, that MOTI didn't require a traffic study because there was no access to the highway. It was off Main Street. This property has no access to the highway. It's off of our road. So why would MOTI have a interest in this one different than they had in the other one?
Floor area,
For me?
floor area.
And
The floor area.
And I'm not saying necessarily that they would have an interest in this one. It could be the same as Main Street. Well, they'll say, oh, you're getting access off Sicamous School Road. We're not concerned, but from staff, we're going to ask for that traffic impact analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, then I see Travis is on the line now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to step out for another commitment. Yeah, thank you guys for your time to have us in this development meeting. Just kind of jumping into it now. You guys have
Yeah,
any?
so just quick, Travis. So I just kind of talked through like the very basics at the beginning and kind of we're just started the conversation. So feel free to say your little bit. I'm sure you're probably going to be better at talking than me.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I'm sure Nelson has touched on our mission and vision statement for what we kind of plan and envision for this brewery to be and how we plan to integrate it into the town of Sicamous. And yeah, just coming in a little bit behind here. Have you gone over that, Nelson?
I kind of explained we're planning on building a brew pub and the basic plan. I didn't get too into it. I explained that we're going to have like kind of a restaurant with a brew pub and brew our own beer on site and sell everything on site as of the original plan, and then potentially expand into like working with other businesses in the area.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the long-term vision, is to have a brewery that is integrated into the town and works to collaborate with the local businesses in there to try and increase tourism and kind of drive traffic through the area. If we could create a brand that the town kind of stands behind and we stand behind the town, we feel that would be mutually beneficial for everybody in the area, right? We're just kind of in the incipient stages of the planning here right now, but we feel there's lots of opportunity to kind of extend our reach and kind of network with not just the businesses in town, but also the lodges and such in the surrounding area. You know, we have CKMP out in Malaclaw and some of the other cat skiing lodges and such. So we feel there's definitely an opportunity for this to create a kind of a long-term brand that is pretty integrated. So yeah, you know, you take a look at other breweries in neighboring towns, and it sure seems like there's a pretty positive environment that kind of surrounds it. And that's kind of what we're trying to emulate, I guess, would be that positive environment that surrounds it. And, you know, you come to Sicamous and, you know, you have this good local craft beer that's been made with local ingredients and that kind of stuff, you know, all the fresh fruit that the area provides in the summer. And yeah, go there, create a relaxed environment to hang out and socialize, just kind of concentrate that, you know. That's the big picture anyways. Yeah.
Councillor Bushel has a comment. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, through the chair, Travis, yeah, I like the idea. I think it's great. It would be nice to have a brewery. You know, taking advantage of the waterfront, is there any possible way you'd want to, you know, I know there's a 30-meter setback for riparian area setback, and you could probably get a variance to maybe 15 if you're lucky. And have a patio out front facing the river would be pretty appealing and, you know, drawing for your business. So it's just an idea, but yeah, I like the idea.
Yeah, absolutely, Gord. You know, you can kind of see, I don't know if Nelson's got a screen share there, but one of the ideas that we wanted to integrate into the building was a rooftop patio that actually looks towards the river there. Our plan was to try and put as many things for the business between the highway and the actual seating and kind of socializing area for the back of the business there. So the kitchen and the cold room and things like that would kind of be a bit of a sound deadener. And then having a rooftop patio on the back of the building there that faces the river, as well as an actual patio that comes out the back of the building. Both could be utilized at different times in the season. We feel that would be a really nice area to kind of relax and, like I mentioned, concentrate at, you know.
Yeah. The patios would also be huge for making it so we can kind of expand our capacity a little bit in summer when the population of Sicamous kind of explodes. But then we still have a smaller area to maintain and use during the winter when there's probably going to be a lot less traffic.
Yeah.
You've got the snowmobilers and in the quieter seasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask a question of the two of you. First question is where are you both from? And the second question is when you, if you were to do this business, would you become residents of the district of Sicamous?
So we're both from Edmonton area of Alberta. My parents have been bringing me to Sicamous for the last 20 years. My parents own a lot at 6 Mile Point on Mara. And we've been coming multiple times a year since they bought that lot about 10, 15 years ago. We would start out for sure operating the business. I think Travis is planning on moving full-time. If we do this and staying, I would probably stay full-time, and unless I decide I don't like living in Sicamous, I might potentially leave once everything's up and running and I'm no longer necessary to maintain the business, but that's going to largely depend on how I enjoy life in Sicamous.
Yeah.
So the original plan is for both of us to move there and we would operate it. Like I would probably act as the main brewer and every odds and ends, and Travis would probably be a little bit more on the storefront kind of front. And we'd both be doing all kinds of odds and ends, obviously, to run the business.
Yeah, we're both we realize that we'll both have to wear a lot of hats in order to make this thing operate. And that's completely okay with us. My wife is a resident doctor, and she'll be looking for full-time employment here in the next probably 4 to 6 months. So her and I have we're having a conversation right now about relocating full-time out to that Sicamous area, and then her taking a job either in town or one of the neighboring towns kind of thing. So this would be a good opportunity for me to kind of change my career path, I guess, and take on something that would be a little bit more exciting and fun, and, you know, give me an opportunity to kind of keep busy. So, and then, yeah. And then, you know, with Nelson's plans, you know, him and his fiance, they're having that conversation about moving out there as well. So we can use all the help that we could get in regards to him and I making this thing float here. So, yeah. But with us moving out there and kind of being local, you know, it's definitely that day-to-day operation that I'll be overseeing. So, yeah.
All right. You're not Bob. Go ahead, Brian.
Well,
Deb had,
Let Brian, then Deb can come after.
okay. No, this looks really exciting. Looks like a lot of work. Hopefully we can give you some advice and help and support as you go. I know you're at the starting stage, and so, you know, won't look too close at the plan. I'm sure things will change a little bit as you go along and you make some decisions. Staff accommodation is something to think about going forward. If you that's a tends to be kind of an issue in town. So if you can think about that, you know, possibly if there's a possibility of picking something up, might be a good idea. I think it's a great market, great location, and I wish you all the best.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we really feel that there's a strong opportunity to try and do this, especially with you know, the draw to snowmobiling in the wintertime, having the ski hills that kind of border Sicamous. You've got Sun Peaks out in Kamloops, you've got Silver Star and Vernon, you've got Mount Revelstoke, and then all the summer attractions too, you know, having the lake, the bike and hike trails, the mountain bike park that's being assessed right now, the rail trail. You know, there's a lot of draws that could help kind of bring everything together, we feel. So.
And Travis, just one of the things you missed that they brought up before is there's still ongoing talks with Highway 1 about what their 4-lane expansion is going to mean.
Oh, okay.
It might mean bad things for the property we're looking at. So there's going to be something you and me are going to have to talk about, think about.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I'm just going to comment, I'm going to ask staff if they could just check with MOTI on the possibility of, they did at the last meeting suggest that they were going to come back with some sort of a 4-lane what the 4-lane future was gonna look like going through our community, because we've begged for 10 years for that, and they did give us a kind of loosey-goosey commitment. But if I was buying that piece of property, I'd definitely want to know what the 4-lane highway was gonna do. Because if you're gonna have a seating capacity of 50 or 60 people, you're gonna have a problem if you lose that front parking.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the downside of not being on Main Street, is we have to have all our own parking.
Yeah.
So
Obviously, so that's
Deb,
why.
you had a comment, Deb?
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify. So you guys haven't actually purchased the property yet. You're just kind of investigating it. Okay.
No,
What kind of timeline are you looking at, or in terms of actually being able to get me a beer?
well,
Just it's all about me.
we've kicked off, like, that's kind of why we dove into the project so thoroughly and trying to research everything as fast as we can, because we don't want to miss out on the property. And we don't know how long it'll sit, or if it's going to sell out from underneath us or anything like that. So we're kind of trying to do our due diligence as fast as we can to try and figure out how feasible everything is as a project for this specific property. As far as a timeline, I mean, from purchase and building, we'd probably be looking at least a year and a half, I imagine, with how fast things can be built. Like the earliest would probably be sometime in 2023. We obviously, if we buy the property and move forward, we'd like it to be as soon as possible, but
Yeah.
everything takes time. Some of our questions for you guys with the kind of studies we're going to need, like I imagine on the river, we might need an environmental study. We've already talked about a potential traffic study, so that's going to be some other stuff. The more we're going to have to look into, we're going to have to account for the kind of time everything's going to take. So that's, I guess, some of our questions is going to be that related, like what all we're going to need to do to potentially get things started. Is some of our questions.
Yeah, and like the other guys are saying, like your setbacks from the river, with the riparian, and then also with the 4-laning, if you can still make the site work and that. But
Yeah.
just as a side note, I also organize the Fungi Festival. So you guys need to think about a mushroom, like flavored themed beer for the festival, because it's gonna be big someday. So
Yeah.
shut up.
And honestly, that's our whole intent, is to try and include as many local things as we possibly can. The more we can collaborate, the better off we feel.
So you're
And
gonna
this-
have beer and the Liberty mushroom.
Yeah, and as far as the setbacks, like this picture we're looking at right now, this is using the setbacks that I could find based off of all the zoning laws. So it's 30 meters from where I could best guess the river starts based off of like a Google Maps picture. So I'm sure it's a little bit off, but like that big gap behind it. Yeah, so that big gap behind it is 30 meters. And I mean, obviously, if we lose some land to the 4-way, but if we're able to reduce that 30 meters to say 15 meters, that we might break even. It depends how much land the 4-way would take. As far as traffic entrance, I know one of you mentioned that this is one of the worst intersections you were saying that's left. I'm just curious, what about it is bad? I haven't been on this side of Sicamous very much.
Well, if you go out to Old Town, cross that bridge and come across the bridge in the 2 months in the summertime, which will be your busy 2 months, it's advisable that you make a right turn, and that's difficult because the traffic light backs the traffic up. And let's just say there's a lot of people that go, well, I can't let that guy in because I'm in a hurry and I'll be like 10 seconds later than I'm supposed to be. And then go around the traffic circle to go eastbound.
Yeah,
A left-hand turn off of that intersection going east is out of the question. Like
I didn't even think there was a left turn lane. I thought they got rid of it when they changed everything.
No, there's still
Okay.
a left turn there. And so, yeah, and it doesn't matter. The bridge construction had nothing to do with that. It's been that way every summer for 20 years.
Yeah, because I think you'd want to get rid of the left turn. I agree. Like that, like it doesn't have that much time to go around the traffic circle. But yeah, turning left there, I could see that's going to be another disaster.
Yeah, but and that's why I say the difficulty is going to be in what the future 4-laning looks like. I can't see that 4-lane happening without having a one-way at least on your side, that property side, going westbound, and a one-way going eastbound on the opposite side. And to do that, when you do the calculation of what's there now as a 4-lane and you add that all in, they're gonna be almost to your front door. But they don't want to use the river, which comes right out to the highway at the traffic light. So that's why I say I don't exactly know that's why everybody's asking exactly what is MOTI's intention to do with that piece there. Even the bridge they're building, they end the 4-lane at Silver Sands, which is halfway between the bridge and the traffic light. And then they're down to 3 lanes, and the 1 lane is actually a turning lane onto 97. And so then it's 2 lane from the traffic light, just the way it is right now. So nobody in our community has the foggiest idea of what the 4 lane's gonna look like. Like I know when they built it by the Kicking Horse there, they cantilevered the highway over some of the river there. So it's not like that's not a doable thing. We actually wanted to put that bridge at the traffic light, but by the time we would have had to do studies and investigations and First Nations and all the different requirements to move it, we probably wouldn't see that bridge for 10 years. So, and MOTI was not in favor of us moving that bridge there. They never gave us a reason why. So we have no idea what their forecast is going to look like. And so, but we do know from when they did the roundabout that they do pay a heck of a pile of excess cash for an existing business that they got to take the property from, because they bought the video store for a number which I just could figure out that was the best deal in town. So go ahead, Brian.
So the one thing about that intersection being bad is that if you're waiting there to turn right, you may want to stop in for a beer. And so I see that as a really positive thing.
You'll have time.
Yeah, you'll have time because I've sat there for a while.
Yeah.
You maybe want to have curbside beer service.
Yeah, pick up window or something.
And
Well, it looks good, guys, and I'm certain that our staff can help you moving forward, making sure you have all the information. We're close to having a document ready that I hope that will tell you exactly what you need to do on the district side. And that would be a great location. But you might want to look at your options as well.
That's good to know.
yeah, lots to think about.
Yeah.
Were there any other questions you had, Travis, that we haven't brought up yet?
I guess my big one would be, is there any kind of indication on a timeline on when this highway decision might be made? I know you guys had said you don't know what it will look like, but what about a timeline on a decision?
Let's just say we've been waiting for 25 years for them to tell us what is going to happen. And as far as I know, we're still waiting.
Okay.
And the last comment that we had from MOTI was that 4-laning is probably not going to happen for 20 years. So
Okay.
I basically tried to insult them and say, so we're named wrong. We should be called Kirkaliki. That's where the last spike was. So we'll probably be the last piece of 4-laning in the entire province of British Columbia.
How does it work if they need to get more land? Like, do they have to, like how does that work if they would have to buy a section? Like if we went forward with our plan, just assuming things stayed as it does now, and they say, no, we need that, like, how would that process even work? Like, do they have to kind of buy at a reasonable rate, or can they just take it and too bad kind of thing?
Well, no, they have to pay fair market value. So for example, when they did the traffic circle in town here, there was a video store there.
Yeah.
And it was a fairly successful video store when you used to go get 8 tracks or whatever you call CDs. But now Netflix and all the other Crave and all that other stuff is not, that business was pretty much gone. And they had a gelato ice cream thing. And I think they might, I wasn't sure, did they still make pizzas?
I know we got pizza from a couple times.
They really weren't that busy. Like I did notice a lot of, and don't quote me, but I think they got bought out for like 750,000 for not very much business there. So, but they do consider the business, they do consider the value of what you got. So, but they do have to pay fair market value.
So
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so if we had like a successful brewery that it's operating quite well, they would have to pay fairly, and then we could potentially consider buying a different land and moving if it had to come to that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's correct. But then your location, where you're gonna go to, if this is, you want this location for the exposure, right? So,
Yeah.
And we have no idea what Highway's vision is. So one of our biggest reasons for asking for that 4-lane plan was so that we could tell businesses that this is what they're doing. And actually, in defense of what Highways might be doing towards the 4-lane, we would say to you, well, you know that you're going to lose 20 meters in the front of your property when this goes ahead. But Highways won't make a commitment. So right now the district will let you build like you have, as long as you meet the setbacks, which I'm happy to approve. Like if you wanted to buy that, build that, fill your boots.
Yeah, because I mean, if there's potential of losing the fronts, every bit we can push back, I mean, then at least we've got land to move and we could adapt.
Yeah.
I think like we built this parking lot just to kind of figure out what our max capacity could be. And I think with 3 vehicles per person, like this gives us a capacity of around 200 people, which is quite large, obviously. So we could lose some land and it'd still be feasible. Like I said, especially if we push back. I think the biggest question would be how our access changes as well. If we were to like have this land, like, because that's the thing is right now, I guess if there's still fairly easy access right now.
But I'm just going to ask staff, if you built a 6,000 square foot building under the new zoning bylaws for commercial, what is the parking requirement?
Depends on the use.
Well, as a pub restaurant.
I looked it up. I think it's 3 vehicles. I mean, 3 persons per parking spot for like a restaurant. So if it's not changing to the new stuff, then that's what we kind of did our math around.
Yeah.
For a restaurant, it's one parking spot for every 3 seats in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Okay. So you'll have to look at not your square footage. So then the brew pub part of it, that's not into it. It's just the number of seats that affect the parking.
Yeah.
No, we'd probably be adding for the industrial space as well, and then the office space. So we'd have to do that calculation. We haven't had a chance to really look at this design and apply what we would we'd need for parking and some of the other things, and we'll do that for you though, and we'll get back to you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
All right, guys. Well, this staff is waiting and ready for you, I guess. If we can be of any assistance, and hopefully, you make some decisions, get your information. Our only thing as the Planning Development Committee is to make sure that you're fully aware of what we know could be obstacles that you should know about.
Be aware of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. As long as we can kind of take those next steps moving forward, and as long as you guys don't foresee any major hiccups or roadblocks, we can kind of take those next steps and see what those look like for us and keep moving forward. So.
Okay. Maybe introduce them to the guys that were here earlier.
We were listening in with some interest in that.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. So on the zoning bylaws 2021 review, does anybody else have any comments? Does the staff have anything they want to tell us?
No, we'll try and get, next meeting, we'll have a little bit more information and yeah, we're still on track for November for a public hearing, so.
So at this particular time, do we actually have zoning maps matched up to the zoning bylaws?
Yeah, so that's still, I have been working on that and updating it. There's some things that I haven't done yet because I need to talk to Scott. But there's a few that I've gone through and like amended, right? So the Yarmulke ones are all C1, except for that one that he doesn't own, which is still CR. So yes, they could farm. But yeah, the mapping's coming along and we're mostly focusing on getting the bylaw sorted out so that we can then make the map match it.
So was there the comments back from ALC? They've changed a couple things, like I think you're allowed to build a larger second dwelling on ALR land now than what was previous. So do we refer to just ALC or do we actually have what they allow?
Yeah, so they're streamlining that second house thing so that they don't, people don't need to go to the ALC for approval or anything like that. We can just write it right into our bylaw and that will be fine. So.
And what is the actual square footage of that second house? Because I think they changed it to you can have a second house and you can also have accommodations for workers as long as they're not full-time residents at it.
I think there's still a differentiation. I'd have to read it again. It's been a while since I read the changes that are coming. I can't remember what it was, but they're permanently going to allow the second house. Like they just kept extending how long it would be that you could apply to put one on before the changes that had recently happened, but they're bringing it back. And I can't recall if it still has to be a mobile. I don't really think it matters. I think that was one of the big comments that came back from local.
I know it can be.
They're never going to remove it. Once there's a mobile home there, there's always going to be a house there. So why this rule that it has to be a mobile and has to be removed? I'd have to look at that again. I know your main house is restricted to 500 square meters, which is huge.
Mine's bigger than that.
Yeah, it's massive. I don't recall. I'll look at it again though. Did you want me to send you an email or?
Well, no, I'd just like it to be, because I get asked by people that have agricultural land, what the ruling is. And so when I read through it the last time, and I'm not sure that it actually was done yet, but I thought they were 11 or 12, might even been 1,300 square foot you were allowed for a second dwelling.
Okay.
Okay, which to a lot of people with agricultural land, you pretty much got to offer family size accommodations. And maybe they're building it up and down. And I don't know whether that's actually allowed because like D. Dutchman Dairy, he's the guy that was there that was running lived there. And Chris has a full-time person that's the milker, lives on the property. So, but that house already exists and has existed, but he's talking about you might want to increase the size of it because it is old and it is a smaller house because he could only have so many square feet. I think it's like 750 square foot house, right?
Right.
So, if you have a husband and wife and they want to have a couple of kids, I guess 750 works. But, if you wanted a larger place, it's just easier to attract people. That's it. Like, for example, on my farm, if I keep going with the garlic the way I'm going, I might want to have a residence on that property.
Yeah, and you can currently, right? And I think it has to be a mobile home currently, but I think the upcoming changes.
Yeah, well,
has changed, but I have to look.
Yeah. So they haven't actually approved these upcoming changes. They're not finalized yet.
I'll follow up because this was in the summer. I was looking at it, that ALR behind A&W. I was looking at that one because they want to add a second house on there. And I know it's coming, but for next year, for sure.
Yeah.
Have to look.
It's just something that if we have in our bylaws, we shouldn't refer to it as, I know that we've written it in that what you are allowed to do, 10 campsites, this, that. Blah, blah, anything that the district can make the decision on should be in our zoning bylaw. And if we have to amend it to fit whatever it is, because like everybody I know that's got agricultural land is asking the same question.
Okay,
That's the only way you can find employees is if you got a place for them to live. It's a catch-22. All right, any other comments on any other part of the zoning bylaws? Done. Deb, you're awful quiet.
Well, so just in terms of us actually being able, like, I know Sarah said that her and Scott have to merge their documents or whatever, but in terms of us being able to access is like, at what point can we kind of see where things currently are?
so Scott, can we bring this to PDC before we take it to council for second reading or?
Yeah, and the plan is to have it for the next planning and development committee, so.
So
Okay.
should we at our next planning and development committee, do we have anything else besides the zoning?
We'll probably have some things, but yeah, we can try and keep it light so we can focus on.
This is an important document and I think we should, if we could get, as soon as possible, a copy of what the more close to final draft is looking like.
Yep.
Then we can all, I recommend we all just pick a section and go through it. Rather than everybody sitting and reading the entire thing. I mean, you can skim through it, but we should actually have the four of us actually.
Sure.
Now, in the business community, have you actually sent this out to developers like Yarmaloy, Brian?
When they get in touch, Yarmaloy did have a meeting scheduled with us to look at the zone and talk about it. They unfortunately had to cancel. They had some issues back in Alberta with another property and I haven't heard from them since. I followed up a couple times to reschedule. So that one, it is what it is. Yeah, but when people get in touch, we do make sure we provide them with copies and get feedback. Mostly like Marvin Tumel, Waymarker has been in conversation with us, so yeah.
It's just the more diverse input we get, the better chance we have of not missing something that's gonna bite us in the backside.
Yep.
After we've passed it all, so.
Yep. We've talked to Parkland Mall owner, we've talked to the owner of the hardware store. Got those two. It'd be nice to hear from more of the folks that own the lands, the marine lands down over here. Heard from one, but haven't had any follow-up.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Carol would. She's still the owner of. Yeah. So. And I'll try and have a conversation. I've been trying to have a conversation with Mr. Yarmaloy and John for a week and a half now. And all I'm getting is, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And you haven't done this. And I'm going, you haven't done anything either. So hopefully I can have a conversation with him and John because they are the single largest landholder with commercial property in the district of Sicamous. So I know Evan's been trying to meet with them and they read the letter that he sent wrongly. So it's just how they work. Anything else? No? Good. Okay. Thanks, Deb. Guess we'll see you whatever time we fire up again. So if I get lucky here and hit the right button, yes, look at that. The next thing on the list is adjournment. So recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee for October 13th, 2021 be adjourned for the time being.
12:28.
12:28. I was just gonna go for the time being. I was good with that. Motion, yes, 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 yes. Okay, we're out of here. Thank you very much. So